public session of our Montgomery Township Board of Education meeting. I'd like to thank my board colleagues earlier, but for the commotion, for the motion to open our public meeting session, which has been confirmed. So at this time, Board Secretary Shower, if you would please facilitate the roll call for the public session.
Ms. Bursch? Mr. Carlson? Ms. Franco-Herman? Present. Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Specht?
Present.
Ms. Spina? Mr. Tawari? Mr. Todd?
Present.
And Ms. Spence-Wallace.
Present.
Ms. Spence-Wallace, I'd like to recommend to you and the board that this is Mr. Tawari's 4th consecutive absence.
Duly noted, thank you. So the record to reflect that. So everyone at this time, let's please rise for the flag salute. My left, your right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We concluded last year with robust celebration
to the summer recess with laughter and excitement. The high school graduation ceremony bid farewell to our honors was a huge success with great attendance this year. The district had a table set up for all spectators to learn about our full-day kindergarten initiative that will be voted on this upcoming November 8th election. This week is our admin retreat, where all the administrators receive professional development and opportunities to work together as a district team. I also want to announce that the Board of Education town halls will be kicking off this summer. The first one will be at the end of July, so look for the notice, and the topic will be communications, responsibility, and accountability. And the second one this summer will be after the August Board of Education meeting, after Ms. Borland presents on the health and PE curriculum standards. There'll be a town hall regarding that at the end of August. As for the health and curriculum updates, we are currently working to finalize the standards in each grade band that will be covered next school year. And as I noted, Ms. Borland is working with the team of health and PE teachers to identify the age-appropriate resources and lesson plans for each lesson, for each grade level. And at the August meeting, she will share the high-level overview of the work completed this summer, how parents can easily access the curriculum for their students' grade level. That will include the standards aligned to each grade level, list of topics covered, and sample resources. Now on to our presentation. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce Dr. Stacy Robustelli, who is the Director of Education for High Tops. High Tops is a nonprofit health and well-being organization based out of Princeton that supports students of all identities, their families, and their communities. High Tops provides inclusive and youth-informed education and LGBTQ+ support for young people throughout New Jersey. High Tops has worked in partnership with school districts and social service organizations for over 35 years. Their community-based education and there we go, age-appropriate resources and lesson plans for each grade level. No, that is not it. There's my last page. Okay, so, oh, I apologize. That is the end of my introduction. I lost.
That's okay, you were stealing my thunder.
Without further ado, Dr. Stacy Robustelli.
She really was stealing my thunder, so I'm really, I'm happy that that happened. So, yes, my name is Stacy Robustelli. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Education at High Tops. And I will do my best to really talk to all of you, so please excuse that you'll see my back from time to time. But I want to talk to you about who I am and the many lenses that I bring to this work. And usually I share all of this information about myself because my goal is to make you feel comfortable, to ask questions, to voice comments and concerns, and for me to meet you where you're at, hold you in that space, and talk about how we can move forward. So first and foremost, I'm an educational psychologist, right? So that basically means that, you know, I'm all about under what conditions do students learn best, and how can we maximize student learning. So that's number one. I was an adjunct professor at Rutgers University for a number of years. I was an associate research scientist at Educational Testing Service. So my apologies to those of you who are teachers in the crowd. I worked on the Praxis series creating it. But I will tell you that that knowledge is brought to bear here when we talk about how standards are developed. I am also a very proud member of the LGBTQ+ community. And I just want to let you know that saying LGBTQ+ can be cumbersome. So one thing I want to teach you is that language is socially constructed. And it changes over time. So many of our young LGBTQ+ folks have reclaimed the term queer to be something very positive. So I will often be saying the queer community, and that means the same as LGBTQ+ or LGBTQIA. Okay, so just want to let you know that. I'm also the proud parent of twins. So the lenses that I bring to this work as an educational psychologist, as a member of the queer community, and as a proud parent of twins, one who's on the autism spectrum and the other person who identifies as transgender, I can talk to you about the many experiences one has with going through different types of journeys. What I'd like to do now is introduce my colleagues, or have them introduce themselves, and then we'll get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Shelby. I'm the Executive Director at High Tops, and happy to see you all and happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Thomas Foley, Senior Education Manager at High Tops. My pronouns are he, him, his, but I'm also comfortable with they, them, theirs. And I'm really excited to be doing this work with Stacy, with Lisa, and with Montgomery. Thank you.
By the way, I want to apologize to the film. Thank you. I'm going to apologize to you because it's going to be like watching a tennis match. So, all right, so let's get started. Let me talk about, this is where, right, Dr. McLaughlin was stealing my thunder. So let me tell you about High Tops. High Tops has been around for 35 years. We are a nonprofit organization, and what's very interesting is we actually started off as a midwifery. So we were originally firstborn, and the nurse midwife who ran the midwifery recognized the need to provide adolescents, in particular, sexual health education. So High Tops was born from that. So the acronym High Tops actually stands for Health Interested Teens Own Program of Sexuality. It's a mouthful, right? But that's what High Tops means. And I'm going to read this directly for you. High Tops' mission is to provide inclusive and youth-informed sex education and support, and build affirming communities to foster strong and healthy young people of all identities. Now you're going to see that there are a number of those. I don't think we can take questions just yet. Sorry, so we're going to refrain from any questions until the end. So you're going to see that a number of those words are underlined. And the reason is that those are the cornerstones that we've, through our mission. And I want to take a moment to describe what those terms mean. So we are inclusive. We are inclusive of all people, and we believe in giving access to all people. We are youth-informed, and this is probably what sets us apart from many other organizations. We are constantly taking data on everything that we're doing. So when we go out and do a youth workshop, we're asking those young people, how did we do? Are we meeting your needs? We want to hear from you. We want to reflect what you need. And we are also affirming to people of all identities. So for those of you who don't know what it means to be affirming, it's actually very simple. It's acknowledging a person's truth as they speak it. End of story. It's a pretty simple concept. Okay, so we have 3 agenda items today. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about the mandates and standards that are currently in the state of New Jersey. I then would like to share with you why Montgomery asked High Tops to collaborate this year. And then finally, I want to conclude by going over some of the frequently voiced concerns that we often get in this kind of work. My goal here is, if you're somebody who's coming here with anxieties about this, it's to allay some of those anxieties, to meet you where you're at. So again, we can take that step forward. This is a long-term collaboration. This is one step. Okay, so I want to remind you of a few things. So at the end, we'll be able to have questions, and they'll guide you in how to do that. But let's have an open mind and be respectful. This is not a forum in which I'm expecting anyone to agree or anything. We can just be respectful of how we're sharing our thoughts, feelings, and opinions. What we are going over today will touch on some LGBTQ plus issues, but I also want to reassure you that everything we are going to go over is unifying in the sense that if you identify as human, it's relevant to you. As I've said before, this is a first step. So much of the work that we do at High Tops, and we work systemically, right? So when we go into a school, we're not just working with young people, we're working with the important stakeholders in that young person's life. That includes teachers and staff, board members, parents and guardians. Okay, so this is a first step because much of the work that we do is about educating you and then you going through some self-reflection, and then we talk about how to best apply it. And then finally, what's really important for tonight, because I recognize that some of you may be here to celebrate the joy of some of this collaboration, some of you might have a lot of questions. We are at step one, which means that the goal tonight is that you walk away understanding the why. Why are we here? Why are these mandates here? And why are the standards being revised? It is not about the how. How are we going to deliver this education, right? So that's something that's in progress. So this is about the why and not the how. So respectfully, what may happen is if you're asking questions about the how, I might just remind you gently that right now we're at the why. And when we get to the how, totally happy to answer those questions. Sound good? All right, cool. So, if I say anything that's triggering to you, please engage in self-care. If you need to take a minute, you need to walk out, by all means, do that. But I also invite you, my Board of Ed, please come back. Right? Okay, so
We don't have a choice.
okay, so, right, because, listen, some of this, discomfort can lead to growth, too. Right? All right, so let's start with New Jersey state laws. We're going to talk about three, I'm calling them laws, they're mandates, they're standards, okay? So let me be clear about that. There's Chapter 32, so wait, I get to use my pointer, I never get to do that. Chapter 32, Bill 1335, and the health and PE standards. Now, when you look at the mandates that are above here, Chapter 32 and Bill 1335, these are mandates that do include LGBTQ plus specific curriculum. When you look at the health and PE standards, this is about sex education writ large. Sex education for everyone. Yes, it is inclusive of LGBTQ plus experiences, the same way it's inclusive of straight experiences, and other different types of identities and identities people may hold in their experiences. Okay, so let's start. Hold on, I'm doing a lot of talking today, folks. All right, so let's start with, before I even go into the nuts and bolts of what all these standards and mandates mean, let's talk about why they're even created to begin with. So, mandates are created because over time we gather data. And data tells us a story. So when you amass thousands and thousands of data points, you start seeing themes. Almost like those pictures, right? That where you're far away, you see a bunch of dots, and then all of a sudden what comes into field is an actual, person sitting inside of it. Right? That's what it really means. So I want to talk to you about some of the compelling data and trends that emerged that warranted the state of New Jersey saying, we really need to include this. I'm going to start by presenting to you bullying data. Now, we all know that bullying has been a problem everywhere. And back in 2011, right, have you heard of an HIB, right, harassment, intimidation, bullying policy? That was created because the data was showing that, wow, there were so many instances of bullying of all types of kids. So that was created to protect our young people in school. So let's start with bullying data that also talks about how we need to protect all kids, first and foremost, all kids, but how there are certain subsets of kids that are at greater risks of being bullied. So take a look here. This is from the Human Rights Campaign. It's a great organization and website. They do lots of research on youth throughout the United States. And what you'll see here, now we want bullying statistics to be at 0, let's face it, right? We don't want any kid being bullied. But when you look at non-LGBTQ youth, they're bullied 16% of the time. This is based on about 400,000 youth throughout the United States. And in fact, look at this, almost double the bullying rates for LGBTQ plus youth. Right? So that's a statistic that's tough to see. Here's another one. Percentage of youth who have skipped school because they feel unsafe. So again, we don't want any kids skipping school because they feel unsafe. But you look here, non-LGBTQ plus youth, 8%. You look at LGBTQ plus, it's 3 times the amount. So let's talk about the severity of what that means. When you're a queer kid and you are afraid to go to school, what ends up happening is you skip it. So when we talk about LGBTQ plus youth, we have high rates of dropout, lower GPAs, lower rates of graduation, lower rates of attending college, higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Look at the mental health issues that all youth are facing right now, right? Especially coming out of the pandemic. Right? During the pandemic, there was so much research that was done on connectedness and how important connectedness is. Right? So look at this, non-LGBTQ youth, right? Almost 30%, 29% of non-LGBTQ youth are struggling with depression. But then look, 54%. Right? So these numbers are staggering. And they're really painting a picture for all youth and for queer youth. So let's look at some other bodies of research. GLSEN is a national organization that every 2 years they conduct research on queer identifying youth throughout the United States. Their most recent publication was on about 17,000, I'm just rounding up to make it simpler, 17,000 queer youth. And here's what they found. 86% of queer youth reported being harassed or assaulted at school. 86% of 17,000. That is crazy high. 84% of trans students felt unsafe at school because of their gender. Now, when we talk about the efficacy of essentially teaching students how to be affirming to all, right? The idea of if you know better, you do better. I want you to see this. This is data on what's called the inclusive curriculum, which I'm going to explain to you. But what you see here is that in schools where there was an inclusive curriculum, meaning that young people saw themselves alive in the curriculum. And if they were queer identifying, they also saw themselves alive in the curriculum. That in schools that had an inclusive curriculum, there were fewer instances of people hearing negative remarks made by other students. So let's take this first one as an example. You know that whole phrase, you're so gay. It's a negative remark. In schools without an inclusive curriculum, these 17,000, 80% of these 17,000 students said they have frequently heard gay used in a negative way. But in schools with an inclusive curriculum, look at that, 60%. There's a 20% reduction. All right, folks, this to me is the most staggering statistic. LGBTQ youth in affirming schools had nearly 40% lower odds of attempting suicide than LGBTQ youth who attend non-affirming schools. 40%. So if you knew you could do one thing to save somebody's life, would you do that? Right? If it was your child, a 40% reduction just by creating an affirming school where we're teaching kindness and acceptance of people of all identities. That you are welcome here, you are safe here, you are seen here, you are heard here. 40%. Breathe that in for a second. Parents, breathe that in for a second. Young people, breathe that in. Okay, this is why mandates are created. All that data tells a compelling story. And this is why Bill 1335, the Inclusive Curriculum Mandate, was passed in 2019. So what the Inclusive Curriculum Mandate stated was that for middle and high school age students, so grades 5 through 12, that you needed to put in an appropriate place in the curriculum the contributions, political contributions, economic and social contributions of LGBTQ plus folks in the curriculum, as well as folks with disabilities. Guess what? The reason we put that there is because those folks were not being represented in the curriculum. You need to see yourselves alive in the curriculum. That's so important. Chapter 32, it's another one that came out of this data that showed this compelling story. Chapter 32 is also known as the New Jersey Diversity Law. This was approved in March of 2021. And basically, it states that curriculum must include instruction on diversity and inclusion. When we define diversity, it's diversity on a number of levels, right? So it's race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression. And that this needs to extend K through 12. And it needs to be what we call spiraled throughout the curriculum. So those of you who are not familiar with that terminology, spiraling throughout the curriculum means that it's a constant theme that weaves through everything. So it's not specific to when they go to language arts. It's everywhere in the curriculum. And because it's everywhere in the curriculum, there's no option to opt out, because then you're opting your child out of all of school. So I'm going to show you later some examples of how we very easily teach some of these concepts to kindergartners. Okay, so those were the two mandates, okay, and I hope you have a better understanding as to why mandates are created, much like the HIB laws that were created to protect students. And I'd like to now focus on the health and PE standards. So, before I go into the specifics of the standards, I want to talk to you about the process that most people who create standards go through in order to get it right. So this is where my praxis work at ETS comes into play. All right, so here's the deal. In any given field, if you're going to create standards, standards are this really important document that's going to guide people's learning. So that we know if you live in South Jersey or North Jersey or Central Jersey, that you're all getting exposed to the same information. So that we can say with confidence when you graduate that you're demonstrating this requisite body of knowledge. You've got what you need to move on. Now, when standards are developed in any area, typically what's done is that all these bodies of research are reviewed. So first and foremost, they start with current research, right? What's changed in the field? Right? So you read all these articles and find out what's changed in the field that we should be thinking about. You look at professional organizations and national standards. So SHAPE are the national standards for health and PE. You look at what they came up with. Then you look at our previous state standards. And then finally, and everyone does this a little bit differently, but usually what happens is the standards that are created then go out in a survey format to health and PE teachers throughout the state for them to weigh in and say, hey, this seems appropriate. So if you look at it, and I want you to think of links on a chain, right? They're strengthened by adding link after link after link. Think of these as links. Here, each of these is a link. So that by the time you've reviewed all of that, you have considerable confidence that what we're asking people to learn is what they really need to learn. Okay, so this is a long process. It's not anything that's arrived at lightly. And there's lots of what we call validity evidence for standards that are revised. Okay, so let's talk about the standards at a very high level. The new standards have grade bands. And those grade bands are divided into 4 areas. You've got K through 2. I'm really digging using this. This is very cool. I'm sorry. So I don't need to, but there's 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Okay? And within each of those grade bands, I'm going to get very technical with you right now, there are 3 buckets of information. And those are personal and mental health, physical wellness, and safety. So basically, all of the performance expectations, basically what we're saying a student will be able to do, right, after they've learned this, fall into those 3 categories, those 3 buckets. Now I have to really, we work with a lot of schools. I have to applaud Montgomery District because they put together, and if you haven't seen it yet, this amazing website which really outlines the health and PE standards. Go to it. Absolutely. They did a really nice job. So I have actually both of these. You could also see the Rubicon, right, which just want to make sure I'm speaking accurately. So you can go check those out. And that's going to give you more in-depth, right, because, there's lots that's included in these standards. How y'all doing? Doing good? Okay, good, good. All right, so now, why partner with us? Well, it's beyond the entertainment value we provide right now, okay? So the reason is that we're health experts, right? We're sexual health experts. And we are used to delivering this information to everyone, to all young people, regardless of how you may identify. So that's number 1. Number 2, the other reason is we create curriculum that is inclusive. It's medically accurate. By the way, do you know there are a ton of states throughout the United States that don't require sex ed to be medically accurate? Right? I know, right? Okay, so we create affirming, inclusive curriculum that is medically accurate and it's developmentally appropriate, right? That's the big thing. How do we teach this information in an appropriate way given someone's age? And then finally, as I said before, as an educational psychologist and somebody part of the High Tops organization, we're all about how do we maximize student learning? How do we create a space that kids can come to and feel comfortable to learn? Right? Anyone here heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Right? Okay. So the idea behind that is you need your basic needs met before you can even do anything, learn anything. How many parents here have said to especially your teenage kids, because I know I say this all the time, you have to eat breakfast. I live for breakfast. I love it. I'm like a carb addict, right? So you have to, right? You're laughing because you've heard this, right? You have to eat breakfast to be able to go to school and function and learn. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to feel safe, right? So this is about being affirming and providing that safe environment so that students can bring their authentic selves to the space and learn. All right, so here, the overarching goal of our work together, because y'all are going to see me again, I'm going to be here for a full year, okay, is to support the entire district, everyone, in creating and maintaining an affirming school environment for everyone. Now, part of that work is going to be supporting educators in how they deliver curriculum that adheres to Chapter 32, to Bill 1335, and specifically to support health and PE teachers, okay, as they're now delivering new curriculum that is affirming and inclusive. And what we really hold dear in our educational programming, because we have always been an adolescent sexual health organization, is that if we are not systemic in nature, we're not making enough impact. And what I mean by that is if, oops, got ahead of myself, if we're not working with all the important people in a child's life, then it makes it tough. So I want to go back to the importance of, in education, we often say that curriculum must have windows and mirrors. Now I can click. Okay, so windows and mirrors. Windows that allow you to look through and understand someone else's experience. Mirrors that reflect your experience. That's so important. So we need windows and mirrors, and that includes everybody, so that every kid can see themselves alive in the curriculum. As educators, it's our responsibility to provide an accurate, fact-based depiction of the world children live in. We're not here to tell you what to think about it, right? We're here to present the information in a way that's developmentally appropriate so that you can hear it and decide what you want to do with that information and talk about it in a safe way. So our hallmark program is what we're doing at Montgomery, and that is called the ABCs. She came up with that name, yes, yes. Affirming our youth, building a foundation, communities working together. And the goal is this. Again, I can't say it enough, it's systemic education. We're educating everybody in a school district and helping them with this process. Okay, so let's get to some frequently voiced concerns. Drink 1 second, hold on.
Take a pause here. Is there anyone out there who would like a seat? We have seats in the hallway. Please come and bring a seat and sit right up front. There's no reason for people to stand in the doorway. Come on in if you wish.
Might I suggest that we all also silence our phones, please?
Thank you, I was just
Thank
about
you.
to say that, thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Also, approximately, how long will your prepared remarks go for?
Oh, I'm not sure. I can be loquacious. I can be quite verbal.
Say everything you need to say.
Ballpark, please. Just
Right, so-
ballpark.
I don't know, 15, 20 minutes?
Excuse me, this is not public comment. Okay, we've invited a group to come speak with us tonight. What I've just simply asked is that everybody's comfortable. So if you're standing in the doorway, there's chairs out there, please feel free to come in. And let's listen respectfully to our speaker.
All right, we're good? Comfortable? Cool, thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's go over some frequently voiced concerns. Number 1, I'm concerned that we're teaching about LGBTQ plus identities to children, especially young children. I hear you. So let me address that and how we might do that. So first, let's take an actual performance expectation from the new health and PE standards. And that is, describe different kinds of families. Now I know it goes on, but the main part of it is describe different types of families. Okay, so let's talk about how we do that with a 5-year-old who is in a concrete operational stage of learning, meaning they're very matter of fact, very concrete. Let's look at the family book. Okay, so some families are small, and some families are big. Some families are the same color, and some families are different colors. All families like to celebrate special days. Some families have one parent instead of two. Some families have two moms, and some families have two dads. And it's that simple. And I can tell you from my experience that most fifth graders say, oh, okay, my family has two moms, and my family has one. And I have adopted siblings. And in my family, we're not the same color. We really like to celebrate birthdays. Now, what does that look like when your kid is older and you're in grade 5? Here's another example of a performance expectation. Differentiate between sexual orientation and gender identity. Okay, that can be as simple as this. Gender identity is how you feel about you. Sexual orientation is how you feel about others. I didn't say sex because there's no need. It's that simple. What does it look like in 8th grade? That now when you differentiate sexual orientation from gender identity and gender expression. Well, here you go. Sexual orientation is who you love or feel attracted to. Because by 8th grade, we're developing crushes. We're developing much earlier than 8th grade, just an FYI. Okay, here's another one. Gender identity, it's how you feel inside. Gender expression, it's what you like to look like on the outside. Period. Punctuation is very important. So, second frequently voiced concern. Young kids are impressionable. If you teach them about being gay, they might become gay. So let's address the truth in this statement. Young kids are impressionable. Guess what? So are all of you, adults. You're all impressionable. You can be. I don't know about you, but someone next to me has a cold, or they're like, I'm not feeling well, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, I think I'm not feeling well, right? The truth in that statement is everybody can be impressionable. So let's honor that. But let me talk about what's false about that statement. The falsehood in that statement is children do not become gay by learning what it means to be gay, just like children do not become firefighters by learning what it means to be a firefighter. I grew up watching Disney. I saw more princesses kiss princes. And I'm gay. It should have made me straight then. Right? But listen, I'm not poking fun at it. I understand real anxieties. But what I want to do for you is I want to explain the reality. You are creating a space where my kid can't share their religious values. I couldn't disagree more. On the contrary, we are creating a space where we celebrate you and all of your identities. Whether they're religious, gender, race, I don't care. Okay, so I'm going to be very clear on that one. We create an environment that affirms people of all identities. We encourage the sharing and celebration of identities. And we are obligated as educators to share accurate, fact-based information. We are not teaching children how to think or feel about the information. That's not on us to do. We're not teaching about values because we respect that values differ. You know what we do teach is that values differ in families and that we respect that. Okay? I will tell you the one value we teach unequivocally, and I have no sadness about it, and that's respect. Okay, so in summary, I hope you have a better understanding of the New Jersey state laws and mandates and standards that are out there now. I also hope that you're walking away with a little bit more of an understanding about how and why they are developed. I also hope that maybe some of your concerns I addressed, I realize it's not going to be all of them. That is okay. So, here are the takeaways. All information taught by us, by this school district, by these wonderful people who are really working on this curricula, they're all going to be taught in a developmentally appropriate way. I promise you that our teachers want to do no harm. Standards and mandates are created to protect children. End of story. As educators, our goals are to set the best stage we can for learning to occur. Creating an affirming school environment and implementing standards and mandates is a process that will take time. Remember I said this is a first step? You're not going to walk out of here getting all your questions answered. That's all right. That's not what this is meant to be. This is the why. Today is the why. And then finally, we, on behalf of High Tops, we're here to support all of you. So, I will hand it back to the board to do their board stuff. And then, what I will say is, this is, unfortunately, it changed the font. You can't see it. But you will have access to us at High Tops. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate. That's what we're here for. Reach out to us. And I really want to thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening. And I'm done.
So first at this time, I would like to invite our board members to please present any comments or questions directly to Dr. Robustelli and her team. And that'll be followed by the reading of the first public comment, whereby the community may bring new business as well as present questions or comments to Dr. Robustelli and her team. So first, board members, the floor is open for you for questions and comments for High Tops. VP Todd.
Dr. Robustelli, thank you so much for that very informative presentation. Fantastic job. Can you speak to just how different the revised standards are from the previous standards?
Oh, well, that would take some time.
Well, just
okay.
in general.
So here's what I can say, right? There's been more additions grades 6 through 8, and some for 3 through 5. K through 2 saw the fewest revisions, or additions, let's say. And some of the topic areas that have included are ones that I addressed in the presentation, like sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. Is there anything else that you would think that I should?
Just that we were told that a more comprehensive kind of presentation regarding the standards is going to be done next month.
Right, so those are some of the basic topic areas. Other ones may include, again, I'm trying to go from the top of my head. You know what, I can't on the spot,
Okay.
but yeah.
Just one quick follow-up too.
Sure.
Has there been any further guidance from the state about the standards? I know it was supposed to be had gotten sent back to the State Department of Health. Or
Yeah, not that I'm
Education.
aware of. Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
So the standards obviously have, the performance expectations, and then there are things in parentheses, and some of those things in parentheses have gotten a lot of concerns. For
Yeah.
example, let's say children will be able to talk about anal sex in the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And, some parents may rightfully think that that's not appropriate for my
Sure.
children. So
Sure.
how does that, what are your comments around that aspect of things and some of the specifics, and when the local district actually does do the curriculum as we're doing over the summer, and then how does that all fit into play?
Yeah, so good questions. Standards first and foremost, when they're written and then they're given parentheses, those are examples so that we can kind of operationally define what we mean by the performance expectation. So they're set to be guidance and not prescriptive, like you must go over this. But I want to speak to the fact of different types of sex, right? People have different types of sex. And in terms of talking about having safer sex, it's important to understand the breadth of the kinds of sex that people have. So 8th graders are sexually active. I mean, there are some that aren't, there are some that are. And being able to provide the information that they can choose to have safer sex is something that's important.
Okay. I think it's important that you're here today because it is begin a conversation with the community, and that's something that the board has been talking. We've obviously had people come to prior board meetings talking about their concerns, raising questions, things like that. So I think it's great that you're here to present, the background that you did as we go through this process before the beginning of the school year. So thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
Oh, go ahead, I'm going.
It was just a quick two things. One, I really appreciate the examples as well. I think that was helpful for, can't speak for everyone, but to visualize, like you said, developmentally appropriate. Looking at the book, seeing how, at what age level they will, be able to view the curriculum. Also, maybe, I don't know if this is something you can answer, or maybe Mary and Zelda, but where you said working with the teachers, the students, what kind of are you training? Because you want to make sure that the teachers are fully aware of how to now teach this information, and how is it going to be, I guess, not monitored, but just what kind of feedback, or how are we going to help with that process? Are you going to be training staff? What kind of information are you going to give families that could be helpful? Is this something maybe even before, because I know you're spiraling things into the, the curriculum, but are parents going to have like a heads up on what's going to be taught? Maybe they can start those conversations if some choose to do so. So just a couple thoughts and questions.
Yeah, so I'm gonna.
So we're gonna have an introduction to High Tops sent out to the entire community right when we kick off the school year. And in that, it will talk about the touch points with the community, the parents, the touch points with the staff members, and our plan to roll it out. Next month, Ms. Borland is going to give us a more in-depth overview of our curriculum and how to access it, and the board's going to have the second town hall to also discuss it. So that will all be there. The opt-out, we're still in the process of coming up with how we're going to notify parents to opt out of certain portions of the curriculum.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Robustelli, for your presentation again. It was insightful. So in speaking to various parents within the community, the trend, if you will, what's common that I'm hearing is that particularly with our health and physical education standards, that parents and or families feel that the school district, the education system, teachers, up to and including the board, is usurping their responsibility as a parent. That it is, parents are expressing that teaching this content, even though you've been explicit tonight of its developmental appropriateness, that it is the responsibility of the parents to teach this information to the children. So it's almost as if there's these blurred responsibilities, and we know there's an educational context, fact-based, accurate information. So can you please speak to that huge concern that the parents in our community are expressing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to reassure parents out here, we're not taking away your agency. They're your children. We are beholden as a public school system to teach the standards that the state sets out. So if you choose to send your child to a public school, then they are going to be exposed to this curriculum. And we did contextualize why this curriculum is so important and reflective of the reality. But I promise you that we are not taking agency away from you. When your child comes home and you want to talk to them about your family values around this specific information, that is completely fine. So what is not up for debate, though, there really aren't blurred lines, because we have very strict rules as a public school. So that's what our responsibility is as educators. And just like your responsibility as parents is raising your children, we're not going to mess with your responsibilities, and these are our responsibilities. So there really aren't any blurred lines. This is what we need to do, and we are going to do it. So, I don't mean to be so direct, but I think it's very important to talk that this is actually, there's no blurring at all.
And just for my own edification, germane to the statistics presentation. So I found myself becoming emotional a bit around the statistic of, was it?
40% reduction in suicidality.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
more
So-
about that across all types of students, not just the
Sure.
queer community?
Sure.
Okay.
I can talk about it that in the sense that regardless of how you identify, you want to be seen and heard and respected. And for people to respect where you're coming from. And that's part of the major tenets of what we do in educating young people, right? When the whole trend of social and emotional learning came about, it was because we recognized how important it was to educate the whole child. So with mental health issues on the rise, this is very important. So we want you to be seen, your children to be seen in every shape, color that they come with, right? Now I want to also speak to the specific risks, elevated risks for queer youth, because I can't not look at that. When it is a life or death issue for many queer youth to be in affirming school, there are some queer youth that the only affirming place they have is school. They don't have it at home. And that is a lifesaver. Okay, so that's something I do want to drive home. How for all young people, they want to be heard, seen, valued, and respected. And we want to teach that. But for queer youth in particular, suicidality is, they're 4 times more likely to commit suicide, to try to commit suicide, than people who are non-LGBTQ. 4 times more likely.
So I have a question. How many non-LG people do you, queer, how many non-queer people do you have working at your company?
Oh, so what we usually teach people is if they want to disclose their sexual orientation, that's their information to disclose. So I prefer not to do that, to honor who they are. But we have diversity in many ways among our staff, with race, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, socioeconomic status, and more.
It makes me wonder about the perspective that you'll be coming from. So
Yeah, I feel like I'm happy to answer that. About half of our staff identify as queer and the other half don't.
Yes.
So, can you talk to us specifically about identification? And I'll qualify that. So, it's my understanding, and parents have sent communication to the board, and I.
For 1 second. For the second time, for the members of the audience, can you please silence your cell phones? Thank you.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Board Member Todd. So, in my private conversations with parents, they've reported that one of our schools within district seemed to have placed a stronger emphasis on its acknowledgement of Pride Month. And during this acknowledgement, children of the lower grade span were communicating. Sometimes I feel like a girl, sometimes I feel like a boy. Even a community member at one of our previous board meetings stated that it was a male that I believe identifies as male. He stated, my child came home and told me that he can be anything that he would like to be. So, and I'm really curious about the research, and particularly when the language that we use, and when we're using the word affirming. And I think it's, should be of an acute interest of parents when is it appropriate or proper for a parent to affirm a child's identity, because, cognitively, they change, right? And their assessment of themselves, they're in and out of that understanding. So can you talk a little bit about that before
Sure.
you respond? I mean, this information is so critical, and the board, as well as the staffing here in the district, we have continued to show you that we prioritize, your concerns and your feedback, and this is one of the many ways that we're attempting to be communicative and transparent and open with you. And Dr. Robustelli spoke earlier about the value of respect. So we're kindly asking every person within this room that has an operating cell phone to please place it on silent and or vibrate at this time, so that we minimize the distraction, so we can continue to engage in this really important topic. Thank you so much.
So I guess when answering the question of when is it appropriate to be affirming, I think my answer would be always. And the reason is that even 5-year-olds will say, I'm a dinosaur today. Cool. Go rock your dinosaur self. Right? And again, I'm not poking fun. I mean, it's the reality, right? So it's very common. So developmentally, it's very common that 2-, 3-, and 4-year-olds engage in what we would call cross-gender play, meaning that, somebody who's assigned male at birth might put on a dress and, parade around. It's very common. That's important. Now, research is indicating that there are many young people who come out as early as, let's say, 5 years old, who have a true sense of their gender identity. And they may come out as transgender. And again, affirming them, accepting their truth as they speak it. So whether that truth is they are a dinosaur or they are trans, great. Okay. And then we move on. It's not about thinking 20 steps ahead about the implications of what it means to be a dinosaur today or a trans today, right? It's about affirming them where they're at in that space. So that's the best answer I can give, is it's appropriate to always be affirming and to meet your children where they're at and to see them where they're at. And to recognize that we all have the ability to be fluid and change throughout life. I promise you, I am not the same person that I was when I'm 27, that I am at 47, right? So we all reserve that right to change and be fluid. And it's about accepting.
If I may, I would just like to challenge you to be more explicit and refer to evidence of research and what you're seeing, especially as an educational psychologist. Is it really the same in affirmation when our children communicate? I loved Superman growing up, and I was Superman. Even in adulthood, I was, like
that is awesome.
So, is it really the same in affirming being a dinosaur, or in my case, Superman? Regardless of my age, 3, 5, 10, 52. And I'm biologically a woman, I identify as a woman, but if I express a male, is that really the same? Can you talk more about that? Affirming whether a dinosaur or your biological, or just your identity, is that actually the same thing? And if so, how are we justifying that?
How are we justifying it for accepting someone's truth?
Yes, especially for children, for young children.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of
This is a struggle for parents then, when I'm speaking with parents and they're communicating. This is a very
Zelda, may I jump in?
pertinent item.
Is this, can I, tell me if I'm out of line, or this is like off topic, but are you saying too, like, if a student is at school, like, watching that announcement, right? And that child that came home and said, oh, the child said I could be whatever I'd like to be, me, and they said, oh, I want to be maybe if I'm a girl, and I said, oh, I want to be a boy. But previously, I would never even have thought that. Is it putting the idea in your head, or is it affirming? Is that what you're getting at, kind of?
Sort of, yeah.
Like, is it something
So-
that thought was never there? Is it just putting it, or is it something that's really being felt? Does that make sense?
Well, number one, when we're educating people, right? Not everybody comes filled with knowledge, right? So we're going to educate them on things they didn't know. And part of that education is receiving it and owning it and making your own and figuring out, how does this apply to me? So for that young person who says, I want to be a boy today, okay. When you say okay, it gives that child permission to either be imaginative, or, it might also give that child language of feeling, because I promise you they will feel that something doesn't quite fit. They might not have the language for it yet, but maybe you're now giving them the language to express how they feel. And isn't that what language is all about, right? So, I've just lost my train of thought, but, so I hope that answered some of your question there. I mean, if you want to do a follow-up.
I do.
Here's what I will say is that there are many
I'm
people,
sorry.
so if the concern becomes, well, gee, if I affirm my kid today and tomorrow or down the road they want to change who they are, well, that's okay. That's okay, right? Don't we all have that right to kind of figure out who we are? It doesn't make that experience in that moment any less real for them. It doesn't make it any less real. So, and people who have a gender journey, for example, that is something that over time, you talk about collecting data over time, and it really shows you a picture, it paints a picture. Well, so do kids on a gender journey. Those data points collect over time. And you start really saying, okay, you know what? This seems like this is their journey. This seems like this is where they may land. So it's something that's not, in one instance, people don't decide, that's it, I'm trans and I'm staying there, right? It's over time, it's a process. But it's about giving information. And listen, for a 5-year-old who says, I can be a boy today, great, awesome. I promise you that 5-year-old in that concrete operational space of thought for that moment is going to then get excited by the next idea that they have. Because that's what excitement about learning is all about. So now there's lots of research out on people who identify as transgender. I get asked all the time, what happens if somebody changes their mind? That's called detransitioning. I will tell you it happens a fraction of the time. But I'm not denying that it doesn't happen. So, but you can really, I think trusting our kids to find out who they are is something that's really important. And a lot of times that's trying on different boots, figuring out which boots fit well.
Board Member Speck has a question.
Yeah, related to all this. So you, as you mentioned, you work with a lot of other districts too. Not just Montgomery, this is one of the areas that you work. I don't know, how many districts do you work with generally?
We don't.
Well, anyway, the real question I have is, I'm sure you've gotten these types of questions in the past, where is there a continuum between affirming and indoctrinating? Some people may feel there's indoctrination going on versus an affirmingness. And can you speak to, the types of concerns you hear in that regard and kind of how you respond to it?
Yeah. So indoctrinating is a psychological process that takes years of drilling into one's head. Often, false beliefs, but I'm not even going to question the beliefs. Indoctrination takes many years. It is a psychological practice. Okay, I am not here to condition any one child to be one thing or another. I'm here to share accurate information and allow those children the space to think, feel, own that information whatever way feels good to them. So indoctrination is not anything that, I mean, it's not even like on the same radar. I would never put it on the same continuum as affirmative.
And you would encourage, I assume, that,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I was gonna say indoctrination is not education.
Not at all,
Yeah.
not at all.
Okay. And I assume that you talked about working with different stakeholders, you'd encourage also kids to talk with their parents about these things as well as you talking with parents about these things.
Absolutely.
This is
Absolutely,
not.
there's parent education that happens. And, you know, and then I'm always giving extra resources and we're available. Yeah, so this is about really supporting the whole district. Absolutely.
Any more questions or comments from the board at this time? All right. New business from the public. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity, this opportunity, to bring any new business to the board for up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. Before you make a comment, however, please state your name and address and write both in the notebook that's provided. Being mindful of privacy rights regarding students and board employees, and to avoid any potential liability on the part of the speaker, the board discourages references to specific individuals. And while directing your comments or questions to the board president, please understand that the public comment portion of the meeting is not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities for you to share your thoughts with the board. The board president may need to refer an issue to the superintendent if the particular issue has been handled through the appropriate chain of command of the district. Comments and questions may require additional fact gathering before responses provided. And we do have exception tonight with regard, the board decided previously, along with the superintendent and her cabinet, that during the public comment, you will be presenting either new business on any topic that you would like, or submit your question or comment directly to Dr. Robustelli and her team. So board secretary, shall we want to monitor the prompting? Yes, board member Smith?
I do have a question on the logistics. As members of the public come to the table with comments and or questions, are we holding those and so that Dr. Robustelli can respond to, because I'm assuming that many people will have similar concerns. Is it possible for those to be consolidated almost and responded to together at a single time rather than having an ongoing dialogue about
We'll
things?
monitor that, and one question or a comment per, it's already 8:58, so we'll monitor that, thank you.
Okay.
The public comment is now open.
I just want to remind the public, they're asked to just write your name and address in the book provided, as well as indicate that verbally when you approach the podium. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Jeffrey Grant, 6 Livingston Drive, and my comment has to do with
It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
Is there a microphone?
We do not have mics, so.
No microphones. Well,
Mr.
I'm
Grant, I
facing
think
this
you-
way.
Sure you
I don't know why I did
Mr.
that.
Grant, you can face that way.
Yeah.
Just turn the podium, that's it, that's perfect, thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Jeff Grant, 6 Livingston Drive, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. What I want
Mr.
to
Grant
talk
is
about,
speaking at this time, it's difficult to hear him if everyone else is talking while Mr. Grant is talking. Thank you so much, everyone.
okay, I wanted to close the loop on some follow-up issue with the Drag Queen Story Hour last month. You might recall I approached the board last month and indicated I was considering running for school board, and I was locked out at a Harmonica Sunbeam Drag Queen Story Hour on the 13th. Registered a week in advance, 3 hours before I was sent an email saying I wasn't allowed to go. Through the police officer that was there, we negotiated that I could attend the online event the next day. I was delisted from that as well. speaking to Mr. Dolan and Mr. Rodriguez after the school board meeting on the 14th, I was told that I couldn't go to the Zoom meeting because they didn't have enough space. Now, $1/10 billion budget, how can there not be enough space? So I made that argument, and I was told by Mr. Rodriguez, well, you might have bombed the meeting. I said, what's bombing the meeting? And he explained to me what it was. I think Jeff Grant's going to bomb the meeting. So the topic is accountability for the Montgomery Township Education Association for hosting a drag queen story hour that parents or residents in this town are locked out of seeing. And the other question is the accountability for the school board in allowing this to happen. Now, many of us have seen Harmonica Sunbeam in full action after we looked her up and did a web search. If you want to see a very, very horrible, disgusting nightclub act, watch it. And if you think it gets worse, if you think it can't get any worse, it gets worse. But this is what the kids in our school district are going to do after they learn about this individual. So I went through a process of what I call subversion by the Montgomery Township Education Association to lock me out of this event. I consulted an attorney about it, and it turns out that any event that this school district has after hours, parents and the public are allowed to attend. Much like a football game, much like a production, a stage production that happens after hours. Parents are allowed to attend. The public is allowed to attend. I was not allowed to attend. And I look at it as a subversive process. The Montgomery Township Education Association did not want me to see this drag queen story hour. It's subversive. And subversion is a form of deception. Deception is a bad thing. Bad things happen when you deceive people around you. So the question to the board is, what accountability does the board have? What repercussions will the NTEA suffer from having done this subversive drag queen story hour? And what accountability does the board have to the parents for having allowed this to happen? So that's my question and my comment. Thank you.
However you want to do it,
I just want to question the public. Our policy 0168, recording board meetings. At no time is a student under the age of 18 to be recording without his or her permission. So I ask those members of the public who are recording this to please keep that in mind. We have minors in attendance this evening, and they should not be subject to recording. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Secretary Johnson.
Okay, so my name is Eli Shelbiner. I live at 5 Mystic Drive in Skillman. And I'll be 12 in August, and I'll be in 7th grade next year at upper middle school. My mom told me she was coming to the board meeting to speak, and I decided I wanted to come and talk to. I came up with 5 different things to say about health education and sex ed. I think health education is important because I'm at the age of going into puberty because I'm almost 12. Because I learned about puberty-related things at school, I know what's going to change for me. Also, students shouldn't have more of a right to learn about algebra and plate tectonics than about their own bodies in school, should they? I mean, we learn about animal biology in school, so why shouldn't we learn about our own biology? Some people might not want their children to learn about sex ed in school. You can opt your child out of it. What about kids and parents who want to learn about it? And the school system has been around for an extremely long time. Do you really think the school would teach children inappropriate things? And you might say that children are going to be taught to be gay. Do you really think that we'll go into health class and the teachers are going to say, you should love the same sex, and we will? You can't be taught to be gay. That's a decision people make depending on how they feel. Health and sex ed is important in school. Thank you for your time.
Those are Eli's words. I did not write them for him. He literally wrote them himself.
Excuse me, ma'am, could you just state your
Oh, I'm
name
sorry.
for the record?
I was going to say that. I'm Francine Pfeffer. Sorry. I live at 5 Mystic Drive, Skillman, New Jersey. And so I am a history teacher and a librarian by training. So I'll start off by saying when it comes to sex ed standards, there's so much misinformation, which is information that's just mistakenly wrong, and disinformation, which is deliberately wrong, about these standards and about what's being taught in schools. In my current job, I no longer work in a school anymore. In my current job as a public education advocate, I listened to testimony about these standards at the New Jersey State Board of Education before the world shut down for COVID. I heard it again recently in the legislature, but the comments weren't really about the standards. They were about inclusivity in our schools, and people are really conflating the sex ed standards with inclusive curriculum, as you so nicely told everybody. Over time, our definition of what is right and wrong has changed. Slavery, women not able to own property or vote, school segregation, punishment of mixed-race relationships. At one point in our society, all those things were acceptable and written into the rules. There are so many individuals who still don't accept women, blacks, Native Americans, Jews, or Asians as equal citizens, and many people still suffer from institutional biases. But as a society, we have become more inclusive, and we are much better for it. And while there are topics in the school curriculum that might make some of us uncomfortable, this isn't about us as adults. It's about the kids in our schools. The 7th grader being raised only by a mother, the 1st grade girl with 2 dads, or the child who's deciding their identity. How do they feel when they don't see themselves reflected in the school curriculum? Subject matter experts work on state standards. Those educators know what's developmentally appropriate. And trust me, kids need sex ed in schools. I taught 9th graders who were sexually active and thought that if they used birth control, they could never ever become pregnant later in life. Not all parents have the wherewithal to teach their children about sex and what they need to know. The district writes its curriculum based on those standards, and we should trust them. So let's make sure that we support our educators in teaching those standards. Let's support our board, high tops, as they implement the new health standards and the other facets of inclusive curriculum. Otherwise, what message are we sending our children? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marissa Connors from 33 Whippoorwill Way. I've been a Montgomery resident for about 15 years now. I've attended all the district schools, and I recently graduated from Montgomery High School. I want to take the time today to speak on the Montgomery Health curricula along with several of my peers, as we believe it's important to center student voices when discussing matters that directly affect us. More specifically, I'll be speaking in support of the LGBTQ-friendly health curriculum as outlined by the New Jersey State Board of Education and in collaboration with High Tops. All students should have the opportunity to learn about the LGBTQ community and the different identities that it includes. This benefits every student. Students who are questioning their identities will be able to find support and representation. And students who are very secure in their identities or who are straight, cisgender, alloromantic, or allosexual will be able to understand and support their LGBTQ peers better. Similarly, teaching students an inclusive sex ed curriculum will promote safety and understanding, which only serves to benefit students and parents alike. In the senior year of Montgomery High School's health curriculum, we spent one day on the LGBTQ community. We watched America's Got Talent video of Julia Scotti's comedy act with the goal of teaching us that trans people exist and they are among us, they're not that different from us. We practiced writing letters of support and encouragement to a fictional gay friend, disregarding the fact that some of us in the room were in fact part of the community. We also watched a video on what the world would be like if being heterosexual was a societal other rather than homosexuality, which was intended to engender empathy in the class. Overall, an effort was made, but many of us felt that we could have given a more inclusive and comprehensive lesson ourselves. I also want to dispel some confusion about LGBTQ individuals and the community as a whole. It's important to note that being LGBTQ is not inherently sexual. We often associate straight romances with going on dates, holding hands, and other purely romantic activities, and it creates a harmful double standard, especially for students who are questioning their identities or sexualities when we assume it's any different for gay people, or that all people are interested in sex or romance. This also provides space for students who are questioning their gender. The goal of an all-inclusive sex ed curriculum is to make sure all students have information about safe sex, healthy relationships, and how to take care of their own bodies. And there's no reason that this information should be limited to straight, cis, allo students. When people try to avoid learning about the LGBTQ individuals and the community, it only leads to more misinformation and hatred, which is why the Montgomery Township School District should go above and beyond New Jersey state guidelines in its efforts to include and improve LGBTQ representation and information in its health curriculum. Thank you for your time.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Walls. I'm from 35 Johnson Drive, Belmead, and I am 17. You can record me if you get my good side. And today I'd like to speak to you about the importance of LGBT representation in the school's curriculum. A comprehensive sex education is invaluable to every young person, but in particular to LGBT young people. Historically, LGBT topics were either never discussed in regards to sexual health or were actively denounced and reviled. With this in mind, it's hardly surprising that there is often a massive blank in young people's minds when it comes to sexual education that pertains to them, which has led to unnecessary and entirely preventable healthcare discrepancies. According to a 2017 CDC Youth Risk Behavior Survey, LGBT youth are more likely to be at risk for negative sexual health outcomes and mental health issues owing to these health discrepancies in comparison to their cis-hetero peers, and are also more likely to be victims of sexual violence and bullying. Comprehensive sex education can eliminate these unnecessary discrepancies, and seeing LGBT people included in these important conversations can ease the stigma around the LGBT community. For LGBT people, seeing themselves represented in school gives them a seat at the table and endows a sense of belonging. Feeling seen and secure in the school environment is an important step that needs to be taken in order to lessen the prejudice surrounding the LGBT community. Aside from the obvious health benefits, the LGBT community being represented in school in both sex ed and regular academic settings paves the way for prejudice to be done away with. Those both in and out of the closet can feel safe and empowered. Non-LGBT peers can feel safe to ask questions and educate themselves. Education is the only solution to ignorance, but in order for ignorance and prejudice to become a relic of the past, we need to be willing to leave our comfort zones so we can grow as a community and raise up those who are most vulnerable. Personally, I can say as a queer student, if I had resources such as the ones High Tops is providing, my experience would have been so much better in school. This is my first year at Montgomery, by the way. A true measure of a society amounts to how well they treat their outsiders, those who seem different from them. But I think you will find that barriers that are often placed between one group and another are imaginary. I know Montgomery is capable of doing great things, of becoming even better than it already is, and I ask for your help in ensuring that vision becomes reality. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hetty Yang from 15 Neal Place, and I'm a recent graduate of Montgomery High School. I'm part of a group of MHS students and alumni who are here tonight to express our support for the district's adoption of the new MJ Health Curriculum Standards. Before I begin, I'd like to give a quick warning for my comments, as I'll be mentioning sexual abuse. So I'd like to begin by recounting one of my experiences in a health class in the district. In UMS, we participated in a lesson in which each student was given a card and instructed to go around and have other students mark off their card, or essentially to have sex and spread STIs. Now, what we didn't know was that one of our classmates was secretly told to say no to those who asked to mark up their card, representing, of course, the practice of abstinence. The conclusion was that practicing abstinence was the only way to keep oneself from contracting an STI until being marked up or used. So I mentioned this anecdote not to vilify Montgomery's current or past health curricula, but instead to suggest that the district's adoption of comprehensive sex ed standards is a positive change for student safety and well-being. While Montgomery's past curriculum did incorporate elements of comprehensive sex ed, such as instruction about contraceptives and relationships, they were introduced only in later grades and accompanied with the insinuation of, but just don't have sex in the first place. According to research published in the Public Library of Science, lessons like the ones I experienced at UMS and abstinence-only sex ed promote abstinence by spreading fear around STIs, idealizing marriage in the traditional nuclear household, moralizing, and even by spreading scientifically inaccurate information, rather than equipping students with information to make safe and healthy decisions. Going beyond our local communities, however, comprehensive sex ed has been shown repeatedly in research to be highly effective in promoting healthier outcomes. In particular, the same study published in the Public Library of Science found that comprehensive sex ed is correlated with lower teenage pregnancy and birth rates as well as STI transmission, even when confounding variables like socioeconomic status and racial demographics were removed. The Council of Europe also suggests that comprehensive sex ed is imperative in reducing and combating sexual abuse against children and teens by informing them about the risks and equipping them with the means to protect themselves through education about consent, mutual respect in relationships, communication skills, gender identity, sexual orientation, and more. Finally, I'd like to end on a brief discussion of parents' roles in sex ed. Far from taking the place of the parents' role in teaching about these topics, we see school sex ed curricula as providing the facts around sex and personal health, which in fact frees up room at home to discuss families' personal beliefs or values around it. The truth also is that many students will be exposed to sexual content through other sources, such as the internet, friends, or older siblings. These sources, unlike what is taught in school, can convey distorted perceptions of sexuality, divorce emotion and personal rights from physical access, and spread scientifically inaccurate information. So in considering the efficacy of comprehensive sex ed and its role in allowing students to become healthy decision makers, we believe Montgomery's shift from predominantly abstinence-only messages to comprehensive sex ed standards is imperative in ensuring students make safe, healthy, and role-informed decisions in their personal lives.
Karen Anderson, 926 King Court. Thank you for all those speakers. These are awesome. And I'm a little surprised by some of it, but I'm impressed at how you guys can come back here and do such awesome speeches. And that gives accolades to our school. I mean, I know my daughter's been involved in speech and presentation classes, and you guys really do a good job. Very well written and excellently executed. I'm going to direct this to you. That was a compliment, so sorry. High Tops, I didn't really realize when I was coming here that I was going to get a presentation by High Tops as to how they were going to implement our curriculum. So what I've asked we the parents would like is some documentation. You can put it in minutes or send it to us as to what this contract looks like, how much it costs, the terms, conditions, time length, how much this costs. I'm familiar with High Tops because I sense was, which has not been part of the presentation so far, is that High Tops also, in addition to curriculum, I'm reading this is from the library. There's a database you go to learn about businesses. They have two entities there, High Tops Inc., High Tops Teen Health Center. One describes educational services, school and educational services, and educational support services. The other one describes clinics, health services, federal government contractors. I'm not sure what that has to do with High Tops. Freestanding ambulatory, surgical, and emergency something. All other miscellaneous ambulatory health care services and unclassified establishments. I'm not asking questions, I'm just stating this to you. To me, what I think of High Tops is, I think of it's the place where the school sends the kids to get their condoms, birth control behind the parents' back. If somebody had an abortion, wanted to get an abortion, and the school could suggest to go there and everything could be done behind the parents' back. I don't, tell me I'm wrong, if somebody came to you, and this is rhetorical, if somebody actually went there and said, I want to get an abortion, would you call up the parents and, or what's the parents' phone number, let's engage this and do this as a family? I don't think so. So, High Tops to me is a lot bigger than just implementing curriculum through the SPILE education, which you're trying to say is not indoctrination. We can probably discuss that sometime. Okay, so we have a lot of speakers today. This is a board meeting. My understanding is we vote for you, right? We vote for the board member, each one of you. So far, everyone that's spoken here, I don't believe is able to vote, is a resident, is a taxpayer, and we vote you in to represent us in our interests. And then I thought it was that you're supposed to help direct the superintendent as to how to make decisions. And the superintendent then spreads that information across all the schools.
You're at 3 minutes, so please.
So I feel like we have this flipped upside down sometimes. Drag queen, I think there needs to be some accountability. I know there's some snickering in the back when somebody talked about that. I'm not even going to say the person's name because I Googled it. And unfortunately, since I've Googled it, I now have similar type of drag queens like popping up in my, because it's in your metadata once you Google it. So it's popping up. Kids Google it. Don't laugh about the fact that maybe a kid saw the flyer, thought it was interesting, and Googled it. And there has to be some accountability by the MTA, the fact that they admitted
they never even vetted the person that came into our school and read story time to our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Good evening, board members. I'm Hassan Kadam at 14 Livingston Drive. So first of all, I thought the high-top presentation was about the sex ed curriculum, but all the time she spent was talking about diversity and inclusion. Some of the topics that are in the sex ed standards were not addressed. I have 3 children in the school district. They are in elementary school, and the things that were not addressed are teaching kids about masturbation, sexual intercourse. These are things that are really concerning for parents. None of that was addressed. And it was all about LGBTQ diversity and so on and so forth. Sex ed standards are very concerning, especially for young kids. I know a lot of the high school students here are coming and telling us how it's important for high school students, but for 8 and 9 years old, they don't need to know about masturbation, sexual intercourse, and so on and so forth. So I'm wondering, what will the school district do to ensure, because we keep hearing that these will be age appropriate. What does age appropriate mean according to the school district? How will you ensure that teachers will follow these standards, the curriculum that you will do, and that will not deviate, go over, teach something that was not prescribed? Will you provide an opportunity for parents to raise concerns if they hear that some of the teachers did deviate and went over? Will we need to contact the board? Will we get responses from the principal, from the superintendent? Since Dr. Robustelli spoke about diversity and inclusion, I had some concerns as well, as the VS school during the month of June presented videos to all the students about diversity and inclusion. I want to make sure that everyone here understands that I'm a big proponent of diversity and inclusion. But what I think is happening is not diversity and inclusion. What I think is happening is exclusion of specific communities and inclusion of others. My son came home asking us if we are a normal family, and we are a mom and dad family, because all the videos that were shown in VES were about dad and dad families, mom and mom families. Some of the videos were insinuating that kids can change gender, and I can quote some of the things that I watched. On June 1st, one of the videos was, you should be able to be free on what gender to choose. I don't feel like a boy, nor do I feel like a girl, so I'd rather be both. No one can tell me what to do, and I can do whatever I want. Another video on June 6th was talking about you can have 2 dads and 2 moms, because mom and dad is not the rule. Another video was inviting kids to join the Pride Parade, saying thousands of people marching along hand in hand and singing one song, so join us one by one.
Thank you, Sue. You're approaching 3 minutes.
So
Please,
my question is it about diversity and inclusion, or is it about inviting kids to participate in this kind of lifestyle?
I've lived in town for 20 years, business owner. I pay taxes in this town, so I guess I can speak and have something to say. I'm a little tired of the LGBTQ community being the whipping boy of the right-wing zealots in the world. We're not a bunch of perverts, okay? We're not a bunch of pedophiles. These people on the board are a bunch of perverts or pedophiles. How dare you say we're trying to recruit you? My God. I just, it's a good thing I have 3 minutes because I'd probably really lose my mind here.
We believe it.
Sorry?
I believe in it. This is not an opportunity
I don't
for
really care.
exchange, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Respectful.
Continue, Ms.
The whole thing with the drag queen story hour, a drag queen coming in and teaching kids about inclusivity is not dangerous to our kids. You know what's dangerous to our kids? White men with guns coming into our schools. That's what's dangerous to kids.
They're in the hallway, they're wearing. We're gonna ask you to be respectful, if not, you can leave the meeting, thank you.
Blue uniform with a gun.
What a sicko.
Wow.
Don't stare at me.
We're gonna ask you to be respectful for the last time.
That wasn't respectful what
For the
she
last
said.
time. Everybody, please, let whoever is speaking, speak, okay? That's how this whole process works.
Thank you. They're supposed
Okay.
to talk to the board though.
Okay, okay, but you'll have your moment to do that,
First time doing this, I
okay?
apologize, I was not speaking. I think it's interesting that people reveal themselves when you push them just a tiny little bit. So what I'd like to say is I support this agenda. I don't have kids in the school, but I pay taxes, so I think I can stand here and speak. I think that people here, they have gay kids, they just don't know it. And those kids need to be supported. They need to not want to kill themselves. They need to know that, yes, you can have 2 dads and 2 moms, and that's fine. Nobody's recruiting anybody. No, there's conversion therapy. That's the reverse. That's when straight people try to make their gay kids straight. Gay people don't do that stuff. I've been in a relationship for 32 years, never been divorced, never cheated on my wife, I have an excellent family. People keep showing up at these meetings. It's just astounding to me. And anybody who thinks that a drag queen is more danger, an 18-year-old who just purchased the AR-15, maybe there's no help for them.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Hadika Batul, address 92 Windsor Road, Bellevue, New Jersey. Today, I'm here not only as a concerned parent of Orchard Village and upper middle school students, rather I'm an utmost apprehensive personnel who cares for the health and safety of the society that encompasses our future adults. I want everyone today in this room to look on yourself. Do you have 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 legs, and a body? I hope we are all humans sitting in this room who are created by one God. And now reflect on yourself. Have you ever been not cared in your lives? When our Creator has not excluded us from His blessings, then who are we not to include everyone? We respect all humans. Inclusivity has crossed some boundaries of civility. If a minor can decide on base of their fluid thoughts, they could be dinosaurs, they could be whoever, then get the minor word out of the dictionary, because now these immature minds are mature enough to handle whatever, alcohol, drugs, whatever. Certainly the Pride Month videos have told our kids, no one can tell you what to do. So talk about the risk and benefit analysis of this comprehensive health and physical ed curriculum. While organizations here talk about other nations' kids knowing everything about sex, and hence prevent sexual abuse, sexual violence at risk, and at the expense of exposing our kids to gender dysphoria. And you know what is gender dysphoria? Is a part of DSM, psychiatric illness, that defined as marked incongruence between one's expressed gender and their assigned gender, at the expense of getting our kids who are not otherwise to more risk of suicidal ideation and exploring the nudity. This curriculum paved path to normalize high-risk behavior, and I know I have my high school students over here, high-risk behavior of having MSM, men's sex with men, women's sex with women, by saying 2 moms, 2 dads, who are then entitled to have high-risk
extremely horrifying diseases and horrifying consequences: HIV, multiple STDs, prostate, testicular cancer, and colon cancer. You say about 40% risk of suicidal ideation. Here you go, another statistical data that has not been reported. 44% of MSM, men sex with men, and 40% of women having sex with women are exposed to these horrifying diseases. Why Board of Education is exposing our innocent kids to this high-risk curriculum, feeding to what? We concerned parents are now feel excluded. Our kids will be at risk for bullied, discriminated, and hence preventing us, what seems like it, that no longer attain a public education, which is our fundamental right as an American. So here seems that the cure is worse than the disease itself, when actually there is no disease, rather an effort to create one. And I ask, why? Thank you.
Good evening. Paul Vecchione, 6 Matthews Farm Road, Bellevue, New Jersey. I guess my questions for the board, I know at the last board meeting and the board meeting before that, the question was asked, was this curriculum formally adopted by the board? Was there a vote and was it adopted? We have yet to give an answer on that. I think by the presentation this evening that it sounds like it was adopted, the Murphy curriculum. To what extent, we're not quite sure. So, is the board answering questions tonight or no? Was this formally adopted? Secondly, it sounds like High Tops was hired. How were they hired? Did you interview anyone else? Like, you know, I know the group talked about their qualifications, which sound vast, but what other group was talked to? What other discussions took place? We were not aware of that. If this was voted on and it was adopted, the curriculum, how come we weren't made aware of that? This curriculum is dividing the community, right? And it's a big curriculum. The last board meeting, we were giving very graphic examples about what I'll call the grotesque part of the curriculum. Tonight, we were giving examples of a much milder part of the curriculum. So you can see, we can make this curriculum look whichever way we want to make it look. I would suggest, well, one, I think there's a tremendous lack of transparency by the board around this curriculum and the development of the curriculum up to this point. Because there's obviously been conversations around that. I would delay adopting this curriculum for September, as to the point the doctor made. This is a process, right? Why not push this process back a little bit instead of continually pushing and dividing this community without knowing what you're going to adopt, what this curriculum is going to look like? Because all it's doing is just infuriating people on both sides and dividing the town. A lack of transparency around, was it adopted or not? If it wasn't adopted, then this presentation was a waste of time, we wasted money hiring High Tops. So I think we need some answers. Are we adopting this or not? When, and if it wasn't formally adopted via vote, because other districts have voted, a mandate's not a law. A mandate does not have to be adopted by a school district. I've talked to attorneys, I've talked to former superintendents. It does not have to be adopted. We don't have to adopt this. If you've made the choice to adopt it, then let's talk about what the curriculum is going to look like in a timely manner. Not a week before school starts and saying, here it is. Let's find out what's going to be in this. And not like a little focus group a week before school starts, because then we have no choice. Because if we opt out, and let's say 300-400 kids opt out, what are you going to do with those 300-400 kids? Any thought around that? Because there's going to be a massive opt-out. Massive opt-out. And you have another problem on your hands around that. My suggestion is push it back. Let's take our time and do this the right way. Thank you.
Marissa Narula. I live at 20 Carousel Chase, Belmead. And I have 2 boys in the system here. One's an incoming 7th grader, and the other an incoming senior. I consider myself patriotic, being a scout leader for over 10 years, and I'm not here to take sides. What I'm here to talk about is kindness and acceptance. Kindness and acceptance, however, are much different from kindness by itself. True acceptance is rooted in empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand, or try to understand, someone else's situation, experience, feelings, and behaviors. If you want to be truly generous towards another person, more than just a pay-it-forward type of generosity, you need to understand their successes and struggles, the good and the bad, the easy and the difficult parts, or at least admit that you can't fully understand them because you haven't experienced life in their shoes. It means that you acknowledge that the experience of another is hard. What I've seen and felt lately, not just in the meetings, but in the communities, in the world, is a lack of empathy towards others. What I've seen is a lot of anger, resent, fear, and finger-pointing. I do not understand how that we expect to achieve an end result that everyone's happy with here by the way things have been playing out. One thing that everyone can agree on is wanting the best for the children, what's developmentally appropriate for the children, and what will best serve the general student population. What I would propose is that both sides listen to each other, practice kindness in the delivery of their requests, and use empathy to understand where each of them is coming from. I have always taught my children that empathy and compassion are the most important and admirable qualities in life to possess, and they make the world a better place. Emotional intelligence is considered to be the single most critical skill in leadership. This is achieved not only by teaching the next generation how to develop kindness, compassion, and empathy, but by practicing ourselves and leading by example. I strive to do this by being an active member of my community, and that's why I'm here today. We must bring our community together and not divide it. We should not allow politics, the media, external parties, etc. to make us fight with each other. What makes Montgomery great is our diversity and what we all bring to the table, both parties. We need unity, respect, and kindness so that we can continue to live in one of the best towns and school districts in the state. And to close, I'd like to leave you with a quote that Eminem, of all people, once said. I don't care if you're black, white, straight, bisexual, gay, lesbian, short, tall, fat, skinny, rich, or poor. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. It's as simple as that. And it really is, folks. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anya Oleka-Jernigan. I live in Cairns Place in Belmead. A couple of points I wanted to highlight in today's meeting. It kind of is ironic how the previous speaker was talking about how we need to be kind to each other. If you're kind to me, I'm kind to you. We've been coming to this board meeting since last summer. There's quite a few of us. There's actually 5 of us that single person started it, but we've been coming asking these questions. We have not been received very kindly. We have not received a lot of data points that we've been requesting. We still don't understand. You heard the speaker ask again, how do we agree on this new curriculum? How do we approach it? What's best for our kids? I think you hear parents of young children, not high schoolers. We understand that this is not something that our young people shouldn't be part of or having a discussion. By the way, once again, I want to differentiate between diversity, inclusion, and sex education. I was born in Eastern European country. I was very sheltered as a child, and I don't feel that sheltering your child is appropriate. However, when we're talking about young children, 2nd graders, 3rd graders, 4th graders, I would like them to still believe in Santa Claus and think about Santa Claus a certain way, not as a real human. I would like them to be able to be creative in their thought process. I would like them to put a dress on if they choose to say dress on, but not immediately identify as a female if they're biological male. I don't feel comfortable with a lot of those things, and I think over the months what you've heard parents say in these meetings is that's what we don't feel comfortable about. I'm not sure how else we can say it. We don't have anything against any community. To the parents you heard here, you know, we're all created equal. We care about our kids. And what we're hearing in these meetings, it's quite disturbing, and I'll quote. There are some stats given to us in regards to youth and suicide rates, etc. We're talking about a very small portion of community, and once again, I don't disagree that we need to take care of it, but we have organizations like High Tops to help those kids. Why are we implementing these in such high, intense scale in our school district? And can I just point out that over the last 6 months, we've talked about our lack of dyslexia curriculum, that we are failing miserably, all of our children with special needs. We have a member coming in here every single month discussing it, saying how we are not doing the right thing for our kids, how we had parents talk about science curriculum in high school, how we're not doing the right thing for our kids, how we're implementing specific types of books kids are not comfortable with, but only on the lower grade level of high school. So we have really big problems to solve, and I'm just fascinated by this community and how they're coming in here, looking at me, because at this point I'm taking it personally because I've been here for the last 9 months, every single month, looking at me and making me sound like I'm a horrible person, where the truth is, this Board of Education, this school district has failed us tremendously. And I'm so discouraged that you brought an organization that, what I've heard them speak, is already approved, it's already implemented, they will be part of our curriculum, when in the very last meeting you specifically said to us that we are going to review the curriculum, provide a curriculum that's very age appropriate. We will play a role in this, we will be part of the conversation, there will be transparency. Yes, I'm wrapping it up. The transparency is non-existent. You continue to do this like as some sort of a show, and the bottom line is we have parents here with very young children who do not feel it's necessary to talk about sexuality at early stages of their lives. And I think it's their right as well. So that's all I'm going to say.
Jessica Midner, 694 Millstone River Road. I was here last month as well. I am a passionate person about my religion, doesn't matter which one it is. I am a person that has always tried to put myself in other people's shoes. I'm a bus driver for your district, and maybe some of you will recognize me. I've tied kids' shoes, I've cleaned pee, I've done things that I don't have to do, it's not my job. I care for everyone. That's what I teach my 2 boys, that which I made a very big sacrifice to move here because I looked up to this place, okay? I drove these kids. I was proud of all of the things. These kids are kind, I said it in my last meeting. They don't need to be taught specific things about certain people. Sure, we have one kid, maybe he's having a bad day and he's not the nicest to his friend, but on another note, he'll be different. I've have friends that are in the LGBTQ plus community. I grew up thinking that queer was disrespectful, and now it's not. I'm not up with the lingo, not because I disrespect you, but because it's just not my lifestyle, so I'm not maybe as exposed as somebody that currently uses it all the time. I've never been mean to a person, whether it be a staff member or anything, and I can tell when somebody's not straight. That doesn't make a difference to me. I don't ask, oh, are you gay, are you queer, do you identify what I identify as? That, to me, I've taught my kids, Even when we moved here, I recognized there was a big Hindu community. I recognized and I educated myself that there's a lot of vegetarians. I told my kids, you eat meat all the time at your table. Just because you see somebody not eating meat, or if they look funny at your food, understand that they don't understand where you're coming from. And we're talking little 7 and 9, that's it. They understand that at home, we do us, and people at their house, they do them because we respect them so that they respect us. And that's the bottom line. And that's not being done here. Because last month, the Montgomery News put me and my husband on the article of here, and my son told me, and this doesn't come from me and my husband, Mommy, why are you in the newspaper? And I tried to express to him that I was doing my right as an American, which is what I thought I was allowed to do, was express my feelings up here to be heard by somebody, anybody, right? And what does he turn around and tell me? Mommy, you should have never let them take a picture of you. This is a 9-year-old, okay? You should have never let them take a picture of you because everyone at school and all my teachers are going to be mad at you. These are staff members that I work with. We may not have a day-to-day conversation, but these are my fellow employees, and I've never disrespected anybody that I work with. Black, white, Hispanic, I don't care. I have everything in my family. Lesbian, gay, whatever you identify as, that's fine. My concern and my situation and my problem is that you're not giving my child the choice to not be a part of something that they maybe are not comfortable right now. Not that they don't know about it, they know it, they accept it, and that's fine. But to the level of detail that you guys want to expose them to, and they don't have a choice and a way out. And I'm saying this because I did address the principal of my son's school, and all she had to do was mock me and call me narrow-minded. And as a parent, I don't think that that's the way that you treat somebody. So I completely understand that you're fighting for your LGBTQ rights, and continue, because you have a right to live just like any other person. But all I'm doing here is begging you to also respect and to not forget about these kids that now feel like their families, because they have a mom and dad, are going to behave. Because I don't think that that's the message that we want to show our children. And this is what they're getting, and I'm not making it up, and I would have brought him here to say it himself, but because I will, because even the Montgomery News said that what was being discussed here, they couldn't publish in the article because it's a family newspaper. So I think that we really need to cross-check ourselves, support each other, and figure out how this is going to be a win-win for everyone, not just the one group that has, and I am compassionate, has not been looked at with the honor and respect that you as humans deserve. And I hope that that's clear.
Public comment is, hold up, gentlemen. Sure.
Alright, hi, my name is Shreet Kapoor. I live on Inverness Drive and I'm still under 18, so no media please. And I wasn't really even sure about speaking tonight. I mainly came to observe, but after hearing what many of the people said, I decided that it might be best to ask a couple of questions of the people who are conducting our curriculum here, mostly with regard to the transgender portion of the curriculum. So I've noticed a couple of contradictions in what I've seen in this curriculum. The first being that they tell you that gender is some kind of malleable social construct that has zero bearing on biology, but then also tell you that gender is enshrined from the moment of conception. And if gender is enshrined from the moment of conception, how precisely can it be fluid? So if they could clarify maybe that contradiction, that would be good. They also tell you, well, they've told us for years, the modern left, that gender stereotypes are archaic, that there is no specific preference that men and women have. Women don't have to play with dolls, men don't have to like the color blue, etc. But in the videos that they've showed us in our health classes, and based on what they're saying about, so quote unquote,
I can't hear, can you face
Could
the
you
so we
adjust
can
the
hear
yes,
you?
quote unquote gender expression. They claim that gender identity is formed by, they use these basically archaic stereotypes to reinforce ideas of gender identity. So if a 2-year-old boy wants to wear a dress, that's evidence that he's actually a woman, and things like that. So they both claim these gender stereotypes are archaic, and they reinforce them at the same, saying that not only are you now a feminine boy, you're literally a woman. So again, where's the logical consistency there? They also tell you that, and even if they can clarify all of these contradictions, they never precisely tell you why someone's feelings define their gender, but nothing else, and why we should affirm the feeling of a man that they're a woman, but not identify other kind of identities that are not based in biology. For example, if I identified as disabled, would you guys recommend that I cut off my leg? Would you affirm that kind of identity, even though it was completely baseless? If not, why would you affirm the identity of a boy that he's actually a woman when he's clearly not, and give him puberty-blocking drugs that cause chemical castration and that are completely irreversible? And that's something the curriculum promotes to kids that are young as teenagers. And I mean, I find that completely irresponsible, and I think that needs to be clarified. And finally, the biggest question of the night, and the elephant in the room, you guys claim to be experts on gendered identity, experts on masculinity and femininity, but you can't define the word woman. I mean, what is a woman? If anyone here has a coherent answer to that question, I'd love to hear it. Because under this new framework of gender identity that you're pushing onto our kids, you don't even have an answer to that question. So in conclusion, I'm very concerned about this kind of new framework that's been pushed on kids. And I don't think the problem is procedural. I don't think that the problem is even about taking up too much time. I don't think the problem is about even parents' rights. I think the problem with this new curriculum is that it's a lie. And I don't think we should beat around
My name is Melanie Zing. I live at 26 Allen Lane, and as a 17-year-old who is running who's different from the grades of 1 to 12, I believe that the school board needs to recognize when there is this curriculum. Yes.
I can't hear you, honey.
Are you going to defend your student?
Can you cite your name again?
Let's start again. My name is Melanie Zhang. I live at 26 Aaron Lane in Belmead, and as a student who has been here since first grade to 12th, I believe that when the school board looks at this curriculum and when parents consider it, we must remember, you may believe, and quite accurately in many cases, that children are naive, that teenagers are naive. However, you need to have a little bit, just a little bit of faith in your children and the children of this community. We are taught throughout our career in this school about various events in history. I have yet to invade France, even though I have learned so much about World War II. We do not observe every single piece of information we are given and take it as fact. As a person who grew up extremely homophobic, who was taught to be homophobic, and who changed their opinion, I did not change my opinion because queer people forced it upon me. I did not change it because people told me, oh, you have to be trans, you have to be gay, you have to be anything. I changed my opinion to be an ally of this community because it was my choice, because I came to a conclusion after looking at my beliefs, examining what I was given, and having the information. Having this information is not having other people's beliefs question us. The curriculum is not about force, it is about existence. It is about acknowledgement of what is actually real in front of us, and we get to choose if we want to be, if we are queer, if we are not. It is not forced upon us. And even if parents do not have faith in their children themselves, I feel they need to have some faith in their parenting of their children. My parents raised me in a way where I feel that I am not comfortable having sex. I feel that it is dangerous and not for my health, and that is my opinion, and that is how my parents raised me. They have faith in me, and they know that because of the way they raised me, I'm not going to go out and have sex in dangerous situations. I'm not going to put myself at risk. And whether or not I actually go and have sex, my parents raised me with these opinions, and if they have faith in how they raised me, they will trust me to not go and have sex. But more importantly, my parents raised me to love one another. I was raised in a religion that was very homophobic, but taught love, universal love and acceptance, and that is the most important thing of all. I think that if we want kids to stop dying, if we want my friends, my community members to stop feeling like they have to take their lives to be able to exist with themselves, we need to have a curriculum that recognizes that they are real, that they exist, and that their existence is not inherently wrong, and that they are allowed to exist if we want them to exist and not literally want to kill themselves. Thank you.
write your name? Could you write
My
your name?
name
Could
is
you write your name?
Please.
Can you write it in the book,
I
please?
will. Settle. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, right. Okay. I can't believe I'm even here at this meeting. I have been in this community.
Could you please repeat your name and your
Gina
address?
Harron.
Yes.
You guys are gonna just keep hackling me, right?
I'm not hackling.
I said my name once.
And what is your address, ma'am?
95 Hollow Road.
Thank you. And did you
Uh,
please write it in the book?
Okay, I want to say something to this group. I have been in this community for 54 years. I cannot believe that I am seeing this in this community. It's sad. First of all, I don't even know how to address you. Anyhow, I'm sorry that I said it that way. I've worked in a psych hospital for 25 years, and it just...
direct your comments to the board so we can hear? I can't hear you, honey.
Oh, my God.
Direct your comments to the board.
This is sad. This is very sad. I want to say I hope you parents keep fighting for your rights, because your kids are the ones that are growing up in this shit. Poop. Okay? You need to keep fighting. Don't stop. My kids are grown. Thank God I'm not in this time. I can't believe I'm living long enough to see all this stuff. It just makes me sick to my stomach. It really, really does. God bless you all, and keep praying. I know. Yeah. For a lot of people.
Bill, my name's John Mittner, class of 1997, third generation farmer in this town. My main concern is, again, lying to children. This lady had said, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, that they speak medical truth. Medical truth is, to be a woman, you have to have the X chromosome, I believe, or am I backwards? X.
You got it.
Yes.
Two of them.
Okay. And not only that, it's in your DNA. And my big concern is that kids are going to turn around. They're going to be influenced. Okay? They talk about you need to groom. It takes a long time to groom. Well, you're starting at a very little age. That's the perfect time. Okay? A lot of us were taught about Santa Claus. I can tell you I was mad about that. Okay, because when I found out he wasn't real, I was really old. I was 12 years old, my parents had me duped. Okay, so that irritated me. So, but in any event, they're influenced. You will never be a female, just like, no offense, you will never be a male, and I can never be a woman. The same goes for you, back and forth. To let a child believe that they can be something they're not is leading them to failure, leading them to be something when they figure out that they can't be what I am. I'm a man. I'm a male. I'm not a female. Okay, I can't change it. If I was to get murdered today, if my wife was to stick me in a corn chopper and they ground me up and they use blood, or they're going to use my bones, they're going to find out that I was a male. They're not going to find out that I was a female. So my biggest concern is whatever you do with this curriculum, the gentleman said push it off. And I think that that's a wonderful idea until you can figure it out and present it to the parents, because school's coming, what, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? I don't think I'm that far off. On 7th. Okay, I'm off. It's longer. So, but Point being is, if you're gonna come up with something, you're gonna slam them with this. I don't think it's fair to the parents, and it's gonna leave, it's gonna make a lot of problems, in my opinion. That's it, thank you.
Okay, public comment is closed at this time. Thank you all for your commentary, and thank you, Dr. Robustelli, for your presentation and your expertise.
Is there room for one more? If, I can wait if there's not.
Well, there's only one opportunity for the comment and public question. You may.
May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Just remember to state your name and address and address the board, please.
Hello. I want to thank you for your patience in listening to so many people. My name is Diana Musawieta. I am queer, and I have been a teacher in Montgomery since 2001.
I think it's real, everyone attending this board meeting, excuse me.
Certainly.
I think it's real important that we remember to be respectful and kind to each other. While someone is speaking at the podium, it's disrespectful to speak over them and to make comments where they may interpret it as feeling uncomfortable or rude. Everyone's voice is valued and appreciated here. Any member of the community that attends these meetings are able to approach this podium during the public comment and share their thoughts and feelings, respecting people's privacy for 3 minutes. I think it's real important that we remember the power of dignity and humanity here. I apologize for the interruption, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll start with my name again.
Sure.
My name is Diana Musawieta, and I am a teacher at the high school. I have been since 2001, and I am queer. I advise our high school's Queer Alliance group, and I've done that since 2004. I'd like to comment briefly on the absolute need for affirmation of all of our students, and especially for affirmation of our queer kids. My students in class and in the group that I run talk to me about feeling alone, afraid, and sometimes being suicidal. Happily, we have wonderful resources at Montgomery, and I walk them to guidance and get them connected with help. I have literally connected more than one student with programs that keep them alive. It is probably the best part of my career that I've heard a couple of times, Ms. M, I'm alive because of you. And I tell them I am honored, but they're alive because of them, and I was just there to help. They talk about being bullied and about hiding their own identities at home because if they reveal themselves, they might be rejected or abused or homeless. Now, tonight, as a queer person, what I've been picking up is that I am being called a disease and a sickness and a lie. This is the world our students are living in, this is what they're picking up on, and this is what we need to help them deal with. This is why we need a program that actually teaches diversity and inclusion and enough sexual education to make them healthy. So I just want to thank the board, all of you, each one of you, for supporting our curriculum and our school and our programming. I want to thank High Tops for taking on this task of working in what is clearly going to be challenging. And I am signing up right here to working with you as much as I can. And most of all, I want to thank all of you. You are the reason I come to my job and drive an hour each way every day. I am so proud of you and your eloquence. I want to thank our students for being who they are.
public comment is officially closed at this time. Thank you everyone again for your participation this evening. So now we're at the point of our meeting where we will hear representative reports, starting with MTEA.
Are there any comments to any of the public comment or by the board or the superintendent? I'm just asking.
No.
Okay, I mean, I guess the one thing I would ask is that the curriculum has not been adopted.
That is correct.
The curriculum has not been written.
Board member Speck, could you allow Superintendent
Yes,
Godwin
yes, well,
to
that's
comment?
why I was
Thank you for the prompt.
That's what I
Yes,
was
thank
asking.
you, thank you. One of the community members asked if the curriculum was adopted. The curriculum is being written this summer, as I stated earlier in the superintendent report. And Ms. Borland, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Staff Development, will be presenting at our August board meeting.
Thank you for
Thank you,
clarifying that again and
Superintendent
reiterating that.
McLaughlin, for repeating the statement that was already made. So now we're going to continue with our MTEA report at this time. Thank you, Mr. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam President. Once again, Jim Dolan, President of the Montgomery Township Education Association. For the benefits of our community members who are new or might be watching this, I'm President of an association made up of over 625 members, including custodians, maintenance, secretaries, paraprofessionals, nurses, teachers, and other support staff. And it's always hard to encapsulate everything that has happened. There's been a lot of comments. Democracy is sometimes messy. I would say today, a little messy. But we had some really fantastic comments, and I thank the board for your support in our inclusive curriculum. You're elected. It's very difficult, the job that you have, and I appreciate that and appreciate the support. I love that we have students that came out this evening to share their story, because that's what we are all here for, as staff, as the community, and as our Board of Education. I thought the presentation from High Tops was fantastic, and what it did for me was affirm through even data all of the work that we do as an association. It affirms the work that we do day in and day out as teachers and other members of our community that support our schools. We know our students, we're here for our students, and we support our students. We support all of our students, each and every one of them. And we will continue to do that through teaching, through our inclusive curriculum that's supported, and through all of our actions as an association, and that will continue. One of the other events, just because school is out, a great example, our Pride events continue. We have our, we give out books during the summer to stop the summer slide. As we know, sometimes not everyone is reading books over the summer or doing work to keep up on it. You're having fun, that's part of it too. But it started with COVID because we knew, what was going on with COVID, and it was certainly an unusual year when COVID first started. So we started giving out books to students to stop the summer slide. Well, it was a great idea, and we've continued it. This is now year 3. And so far this year, we've given out 643 books to 104 students to help with that summer slide. So this is, once again, our commitment to the community, our commitment to the students, and once again, all students of the community, because that is important. And the data that you heard from High Top supports that, and it's just affirming to us to do that. So our work continues 12 months of the year, as you can see, with most of it happening September through June. But I'm glad that we have people in attendance here to support what we're doing, and even staying throughout the whole entire presentation as well, because it's so important to hear the whole message, not just to say your voice and leave out. So thank you once again, Board of Education, community members, and students, and also fellow colleagues who are here tonight, not only in person, but also virtually and watching the streaming service. So thank you all for your support. Thank you.
At this agenda, there's the board member delegate or representative reports.
I'm just going to quickly share. I attended the New Jersey School Board Association conversation with Senator Vin Gopal, who is the Senate Chair for the Education Committee in the legislature. This was on July 7th. We discussed a lot of things about the state's support for school districts, trying to figure out how to support the rising transportation costs, what would that look like, trying to look for ways to support the school districts in their security issues, whether it be hiring retired officers, class 2 or class 3, or looking for ways to provide grant money for security and cybersecurity. There was also discussion on the health standards amongst different board members who are represented throughout Somerset County, Hunterdon County, and it was very much clarified by the senator and the members of the New Jersey School Board Association that this mandate is something that school districts have to adopt or fulfill in their, because they are public schools. I also asked the question of, there was, a couple of meetings back, somebody had mentioned the District of Garwood, that they had rejected the mandate, the health standard mandate, and a representative from the school board of Garwood was present at that meeting and was very specific in saying they did not reject the standards because they are obligated to adopt the standards, but what they did was to say that they were not in support of the New Jersey education guides, which I believe is not a thing, and she even said that that's not a thing, but they needed to say, they needed to put out a statement for their community. So that I had asked that question because that was brought up in one of our previous meetings about the District of Garwood. So I just wanted to share that information that I had in the meeting I attended.
Thank you, VP Frankel-Herman. Are there any other delegate or representative reports at this time? All right, hearing none, we will continue with our board committee report, part of our agenda, the assessment curriculum and instruction committee, the equity committee, as well as the anti-racism and reform subcommittees have not met during the month of July. And we will now hear from board member Speck to provide our report on the Operations, Facilities, and Finance Committee.
Yes, so the OFF met on Friday, July 8th. Chairman Tuari, Ms. Frankel-Herman, Mr. Carlson, and I met with the district staff to review a number of items. They included, on tonight's agenda, there are the normal financial reports, the item numbers 3.1 through 3.4. We also discussed 3.5 through 3.8. The one thing I'll say is that it's a little unusual this month is because we're spanning across the school fiscal year. There are actually two bill lists, one for closing out the June and closing out the fiscal year, and the rest for, there's some bills that are being paid for July. We previously had mentioned here about paving projects that are going on at the high school, and is it the upper middle school or which?
High school.
High school, and that I want to commend Mrs. Schauer and her staff for moving this forward. As people may have seen if they came to the fireworks, that Montgomery Township Department of Public Works filled in some potholes for us in the interim, so that was a positive, and so we want to thank them for that. And that furthermore, in tonight in agenda item 3.15, we're going to be joining a pricing council, which will provide a lower price for the actual paving work that we conducted. So thanks to the district staff for pursuing those options. Cybersecurity continues to be an important issue for government and schools, and so the committee had a presentation and discussion with Jeff Brooks, our Director of Technology, and the IT services firm that we use to talk about the processes and procedures that we have in place to ensure that we're safe and that we're prepared in case anything goes wrong. And finally, the committee heard some information about a failure in the UMS boiler room that caused some water damage. And I don't know if Mrs. Shower has any updates on this, but I know our insurance company is going to get involved in that and preparing them.
We've issued a claim, we've gotten the claim process started. It was an expansion tank on a hot water tank that kind of corroded over July 4th weekend. So it was more the collateral damage, which is kind of good news because that's what's covered by our insurance.
Okay.
So we're good.
Are we back in operation at
Yes,
that
we
school?
are, yes.
Okay, thank you. And do either of the committee members have any things that I missed on that? Okay. Then I guess I'll just roll right into the policy committee report.
Yes, thank you for the respect.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but we have not, the PCC has not met since the last board meeting. I will provide an update that the superintendent has told us that she'll be meeting with our communications consultant next week to get a report of their audit and evaluation of ways to improve communication within the district. And so once she's met with him and received that report and looked that over, then we'll be receiving that and we'll be discussing that at a future meeting. Thank you.
So thank you. So Vicki Franklin, the Human Resources Committee report, please.
The only committee that meets 12 months a year.
Oh, 12 months a year too.
One of two committees.
One of two committees. Okay, so HRC met July 13 to cover personnel agenda items that we will be updating this evening. But we also discussed data requested by some of the committee members on resignation and retirement data over the years. And thanks to our HR team's great record keeping, we have data from school year 2017-2018 through school year 21-22. So there is a slight spike in resignations for school year 21-22 compared to previous years, and that is not unique to Montgomery, as it is happening across the state and across the nation. So that resignations can be attributed to different reasons, including COVID fatigue, burnout, and just leaving the profession altogether. So I guess my takeaway with that information at the moment is I'm very thankful that we still have great teachers in our district and we are not suffering from a lack of teaching staff and administrative staff. That means that we're one of the best districts, I guess, in New Jersey, not I guess it is, and we are able to have like really great staff. So that's all I have.
Thank you, VP Franco Herman. So now we're at the point of our agenda where I'll share our officers report, the new moniker replacing our president's report. So last month, we had the pleasure of reaching the end of another school year, like no other, again. And despite all of the changes, our students and staff persevered together and have grown stronger as a result. Teachers continue to adapt lesson approaches to keep students engaged. Support staff and administration took on additional roles and responsibilities to assist students. Students have supported one another. Students have supported one another, both socially and emotionally. And parents, guardians, and caregivers have been there every step of the way to support their children and the school staff. It has definitely been a collaborative approach that has allowed the MTSD school community to thrive, even when the situations led to provocation. The tenure of the recent board meetings and a few letters the board has recently received has weighed on me. And as I ponder it all, I am reminded of a quote by one of my favorite authors, James Baldwin, when he said, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist." Just sharing an authentic thought there. So the Special Services Ad Hoc Committee held its fourth meeting on Monday, June 7th. The SPED parents, thank you, sir, developed their action plan so the district may better learn their areas of issue and seek resolution and improved practice. The board and the MTEA negotiations teams will continue to meet to reach a settlement agreement. The interest-based bargaining process is lengthy, but both sides are making significant progress on issues where we once were further apart. Our next meetings are tomorrow, Wednesday, July 20th. A subcommittee will meet, and both sides will meet on Monday, July 25th. And finally, it is at this time that the board publicly reports that it will be modifying policy number 0145 on board member participation at the monthly executive sessions and public meetings. We're looking to qualify remote participation that's necessary for exception due to COVID quarantine or isolation or declared emergency, not of personal convenience. So I thank you for your time there. So there are 5 meeting minutes for colleagues that require approval. They are June 14th, the executive session meeting 1 and 2, and the business meeting. And on June 23rd, the executive session meeting and special meeting. So may I have a motion to approve these 5 meeting minutes?
So.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions? Great, hearing none. We'd like to acknowledge 2 correspondents to the board at this time. Thank you so much. And now we have arrived at the part of our agenda with the second public comment.
On agenda items only.
Right, so I'll read that. Board Secretary Shower, thank you for the reminder. So members of the public are allotted 1 opportunity to address the board regarding the action agenda items only for up to a maximum of 3 minutes during this part of the meeting. After recording your name and address in the notebook provided, please state your name and address as well and cite the agenda item number your comment or question will reference. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. I may need to refer an issue to the superintendent if the particular issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command within the district. And responses may or may not be issued at the end of the session, depending on those research standards. So seeing and hearing no comments at this time, I would like a motion to approve our action agenda items. I believe it's 1.1 to 4.1 as amended to reflect the various changes and dates on the HR agenda discussed during the executive session earlier this evening.
You have to take 2 of those out? Which are the hits? Which agenda item?
So the agenda item is hold on a second, 1.1.
1.1C.
1.1C, it's probably 1.1C or the hit.
Correct. So,
Anybody know or abstaining on any of the hits? Board Member Carlson, do you know the number for that? You just would vote yes and you would vote no or abstention and for that number.
referencing the HIV number.
All right. I asked for the motion for that. Yes, I did. So roll call.
Wait, did we get, no, we didn't get
No,
the motion.
I'm not there yet. I didn't get the motion. I apologize, everybody.
Are you, wait, what's?
So, I mean,
We're not starting roll call yet. Just to make sure you know already the HIV number that you're going to vote on, that you want to pull out. That's all.
Right, and we go no for that by the number. Okay, great. Any other questions about the agenda? So I'll repeat. I thought I just did this. I'd like a motion to, for items 1.1 to 4.1 as amended during the.
So moved.
I did say this already. We're delusional.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? Very well. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carlson.
Sorry for making confusion there.
That's one, that's quite all right.
So,
Board Member Carlson, that's
1.1C, and the number is 232-832. You know which one?
Yeah, so,
MHS 05252022.
okay, so let me
It's the third one.
just repeat that once again. MHS,
MHS 05252022.
2022, and you're abstaining on that?
Yes,
Or
I
you're
can stand on
abstaining.
that, right.
And yes to everything else?
Stand at 2.4.
And you're abstaining on 2.4.
And yes to the
Okay. Ms. Franco Herman?
Yes.
Ms. Harris? Yes. Mr. Speck?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Ms. Spence Wallace?
Yes.
Motion passes and approves.
All right, great, that motion carries. Thank you, everyone. So we've reached the conclusion of our public board meeting tonight. I'd like to thank all of those that participated, including High Tops and Dr. Robustelli with her presentation. Should there be no objections, I would like a motion, colleagues, to adjourn this day's public meeting session.
So moved, what do you need?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Be blessed and good night to you all.
Can't have more fun than this.
I love you.
Delirious after 10.
That's right.
Yeah, after 10, I'm going to punch you now.
Oh, yeah.
I think I know who you are. Yeah, my mom said to go to school within 5 hours, like 6 hours.
Hey. I've got Jim Jones.
Yeah, it's good to get.